Well, good morning, world. And what a good morning it is. I will tell you why in just a second after we introduce ourselves. If you are new to this program, hello, I am Manila Chan over there. That guy there is Ted Rall in New York City. I'm in Washington, D.C. You are tuned into the Ted Manila Information Show, or TMI for short, where we will bring you way too much information. Anything from news, politics, lifestyle, culture, diets, whatever, what the kids are up to and what the parents are up to, the occult, anything and everything goes, because we believe you can never have too much information. If you're looking for a straight lace button down news program to start off your morning, this ain't it, because sometimes F bombs fly, because colorful language is fun. So make sure you keep that volume down if you're at work. So it is stuff that you already know that you wanted to hear about, and then we'll probably inject some stuff you never knew that you needed to know. So we are live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Be sure to like and follow this show. If you are on Rumble, please do become a paid subscriber if you are able. If you are on the desktop version, you can become a $5 subscriber member by hitting that subscribe button right below the chat. If you are on YouTube, all you got to do is hit follow, like, and then share us, right? To help us grow. And hopefully we can get monetized very soon. So the Ted Manila Information Show starts now. All right, Ted, we got to do this the big breaker is that according to Deutsche Welle, DW, Germany's Olaf Scholz has called Vladimir Putin for the first time in 2 years, urging the Russian leader to enter talks with Ukraine. That's the headline. I mean, literally just moments ago before we jumped on air. I think that is major, major news. Scholz is apparently positioning it as like a threat to Vladimir Putin. But come on, Ted, when you're in Germany, you're Olaf Scholz, you're a spineless jellyfish, you have Annalena Baerbock running roughshod all over your ass, and your country is spiraling out of control, going broke, adding to this like useless, pointless war in Ukraine. Your traffic light coalition is in collapse. Really? You really think he's calling to threaten Vladimir Putin that, hey, buddy, the jig's up? You better enter talks.
It's talk about like pushing on an open door. I mean, President Putin's phone has been, he's been waiting for a call from Zelensky or Biden or Scholz or anyone, right? Macron. It's like he's been willing, the Russians have been willing to talk all along. I mean, it's the Ukrainians who passed a law that said that it was an act of treason for any Ukrainian citizen, including Zelensky, to even talk to Putin or anyone in the Russian government, which, by the way, I think parenthetically, technically makes it illegal when they do those prisoner exchanges because they have to talk to each other, right, to do that. So, in war, you have to, but the two combatants have to talk to each other from time to time. And so, and they do.
If for nothing else, other than just not killing civilians, if you want to do war right, if there's such a thing as doing war right. But in this case, there's been like no conversation for easily 18 months after Boris Johnson, went in there and fucked everything up at the behest of, I would say, the United States. But does this mean that? No, I'm reading too much into this. I was going to say, do you think this means that maybe Europe is going to be less of a United States lapdog? But I would say no. I think it's more of a lapdog, right? The more that I hear myself say it, is that because Trump is coming into power, they're like, oh shit, he's signaling that he wants the war to end, so we better get ahead of it. So maybe this means more vassal statediness.
Look, the vassal statosity of this whole thing is that's just not going to change regardless, right? I mean, there's no tea leaves to read because that's not going to change anytime soon.
Okay.
I don't think this is the Germans exercising any independence or, for that matter, following orders. I mean, I think it's just like, this is the situation. Ukraine, the jig is up for the Ukrainians. They've already lost so much battlefield position. Their Kursk incursion has been is pretty much on the verge of being mopped up. And
Right.
and so yeah, and with Trump coming in, it's obviously the Ukrainians will at least get less support than they're currently getting. I suspect that's where
Yeah.
things will land. I don't think it'll be no
Yeah.
support. I don't think it'll be a complete rupture. But the point is, they needed more support than they're getting now. I mean, you know, they're trying to defeat an adversary that's 6 times their size and a lot more and nuclear armed and militarily better trained and more powerful anyway, even not even accounting
Easy
for the size.
peasy.
There was never going to, I mean, the Ukrainians were never going to win this thing. So,
No,
I mean,
never.
everybody who thought otherwise was just like, do you even own a map? Like, look at a
Right.
map. It's just not going to happen.
Do you
don't
know
what you're
how to
talking about.
count humans? Like how
But
much
also-
is
but we love to
population
talk-
size alone?
We love to talk about like how these, I mean, you know, just yesterday I was reading about how supposedly China is a collapsing power. They're a paper tiger. They're weak. You know, they're on the verge of just spiraling down the drain. And I'm like, wishful thinking. Okay. It's just like no, you guys are
I don't know.
high. That's not, I mean, you know, it's like, sure, they have challenges, but you know, it's like, we have challenges. They're not going away. We're not going away. So
it's just Western media. Anyway, that's the great, I would say a great, you know, way to start off a Friday and go into the weekend. I don't care how Olaf Scholz wants to position it like he's some He-Man, but like everybody knows, anybody that follows politics closely like we do, Ted, can see right through this, that Vladimir Putin's over there yucking it up, picking up the phone call like, sup? And Olaf is probably like, oh, sniveling. Can you please enter talks? And then he hangs up the phone, and then Scholz goes over to Deutsche Welle and tells, you know, German press, oh, yes, we told them they must come to talks now. It's over. Yeah, come on. Do anybody really believe that? No. But I think Putin is a big enough guy that he's going to be like, yeah, that's fine. Just let him go out there and just beat his chest and whatever. But because the facts are the facts. Facts on the ground is this was over before it even began. And Germany has just continued to cut off pieces of its nose to spite its face for the past 2 years. And I hope that the Trump election is what did this, because had this been a Harris landslide or a Harris victory, there would be no chance this conversation would be happening right now. Zero
that's
chance.
true. That's true.
Zero. So anyway, we have a lot more news to get to, so we'll just get that one right off the top. So Ted, take away the rest of them. Let's hop to it.
All right, let's take it away. All right, there's a lot to get through today, obviously, with the transition. Biden administration officials are working against the clock, doling out billions of bucks in grants and taking other steps to try to preserve at least some of Biden's legacy before Trump takes over in January. Here are some of those moves. Biden administration officials hope that projects funded under the $1 trillion infrastructure law and the $375 billion climate law will continue beyond Biden's term, and they're trying to make sure that the money keeps flowing from those two measures. Earlier today, Pete Buttigieg, DOT cabinet chief, announced over $3.4 billion in grants for projects to improve rail service for passengers, U.S. ports, reduce highway deaths, and to support domestic manufacturing of sustainable transportation materials. On the environmental front, announcements of major environmental grants and project approvals have sped up in recent months in what White House officials describe as sprinting to the finish of Biden's term. The EPA recently set a nationwide deadline for getting rid of lead pipes and announced nearly $3 billion to help local water systems comply. The agency also announced that oil and gas companies, for the first time, will have to pay a fee if they emit dangerous methane above certain levels. I will make no fart jokes here. Pentagon's press secretary Sabrina Singh told reporters this week that Biden wants to spend down the authority that Congress has been allocated and authorized before he leaves office. And we're talking about money for Ukraine here. Speaking of Ukraine, Biden would have to rush $7.1 billion in weapons, $4.3 billion from the 2024 supplemental, and $2.8 billion that's still on the books and savings due to the Pentagon recalculating the value of systems sent. Little shady math there from the Pentagon stockpiles in order to spend all that money before Trump comes in. Another priority is getting the Senate to confirm as many federal judges as possible before January 20th. The Senate this week, for example, voted 51-44 to confirm April Perry, former prosecutor, as a U.S. District Court judge in Northern Illinois. There's more than a dozen similar nominations that have advanced out of the Judiciary Committee in the U.S. Senate. 8 judicial nominations are awaiting committee votes. 6 more are waiting for committee hearings. And finally, the Education Department has been hurrying to finalize a new federal rule that would cancel student loans for people who face financial hardship. The proposal, one of Biden's only student loan programs that actually hasn't been halted by the courts, is in a public comment period scheduled to end December 2nd. After that, the department has a narrow window to finalize the rule and begin implementing it. That's a process that usually takes a few months. Like Biden's other efforts, however, it would almost certainly face a legal challenge. So basically what we seem to have here is an administration that, like many other Democratic administrations in particular, has dithered and dawdled and not really, it's procrastinated like a college kid on a bender before finals week. And now they're like, oh shit, we're like not going to be here. So let's jam all our shit through. That's going to immediately
finals are coming up.
Immediately be reversed as soon as we're out the door. Manila, what I would like to see are some sweeping pardons. I would like to see Biden pardon all nonviolent drug offenders currently serving time in the federal system. They can't do state or local, but they could have done state and local earlier by threatening to withhold federal funds for like education or transportation or whatnot, but it's too late to do that now. But they should definitely be pardoning people who are clogging our prisons for no good reason. I mean, there's still people in prison for cannabis, even though it's basically a legal thing now.
Or even people that are out of prison, like, say, our friend John Kiriakou.
They should have their records expunged. Yeah. Well, Kiriakou, I mean, my only problem with John Kiriakou being pardoned is the implication is that he did something wrong. The guy deserves a parade down
I
Broadway.
Agree.
I mean, like, he's a national hero.
Humanitarian national hero. I agree. But that's, such is the system that we live in. And the system blows ass. And John Kiriakou, who spent the bulk of his adult life as a public servant in some form or another, working for the federal government in some form or fashion, cannot access his pension after he spent, like 30 years or whatever, because of this this criminal conviction for basically being a whistleblower about torture at black sites.
By the way, I think that's wrong. I don't think they should be able to take away your pension. I mean, I don't care. It's like sort of like, I don't even care if you did do something wrong. You know how like
where does that money go
if a teacher fucks her student, they like take away her pension. I'm like, no. Like if you want to send her to jail, send her to jail. But that's her money. Right. You shouldn't take the money out of her bank account. That's just not right.
Where does that money go, by the way? Do you know, Ted?
It just goes back into the pension fund.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that blows. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see like pardons for Julian Assange. I mean, under Biden's watch, he was freed and had to quasi admit he did the crime of journalism. I would like to see a full pardon there and everything expunged.
There should be an apology there.
Huge apology.
Yeah, not to mention, honestly, I mean, Julian's got, as we both know, lots of money, but there should be compensation paid by the U.S. government. I mean, they millions of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
No question. All right, let's move on. Trump said yesterday that he will nominate RFK Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, setting up a big debate over whether RFK, whose vaccine skepticism and views about medicine make public health officials deeply uneasy, can make it through the Senate confirmation process. Kennedy, who has railed against the revolving door between industry and government, not that he's wrong, vowed on social media to free the agencies from the smothering cloud of corporate capture so they can pursue their mission to make Americans once again the healthiest people on earth. I'm not sure they ever were. If he is confirmed, Kennedy would have sweeping control of a department with 80,000 employees across 13 operating divisions that run more than 100 programs. Its agencies regulate the food and medicine that Americans encounter in their daily lives, decide whether Medicare and Medicaid will pay for drugs and hospital treatments, guard against infectious disease, and conduct billions of dollars in medical research into diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's. Many Democrats and public health experts are very unhappy, to say the least, about RFK's selection. Senator Patty Murray of Washington, a Democrat, former chairwoman of the Senate Health Committee, said the selection was catastrophic and could not be more dangerous. I don't know. He's not Typhoid Mary. She characterized Kennedy as a notorious anti-vaxxer and fringe conspiracy theorist who could harm public health in myriad ways. And just to set the record straight, he's not an anti-vaxxer. He is personally vaccinated. He got the COVID vaccine. His family got it. He's pro-vaccination. He's just skeptical about the approval process for some of these vaccines.
Right.
And he wants further investigation into alleged ties between autism and vaccines in children.
Right.
Also on the campaign trail while he was running for president, and after his campaign merged with Trump's, RFK found support from people across the political spectrum who shared his suspicion of the pharmaceutical and food industries and applauded his emphasis on nutrition and getting rid of additives from food. The thing is, Manila, this whole story really reminds me of like one of the many, many reasons that Democrats lost the last election. I mean, whatever you think of Donald Trump, he brings big ideas to the table. Democrats don't. Democrats bring small bore, like micro things. They're
aggressions.
Yeah, they are like bringing little microaggressions. I mean, it's all incremental, and it's not big, exciting, inspiring stuff. I mean, like there's not going to be mass deportations. That's just not going to happen. But it's a big promise, and like it's like the Democrats are not even bothering with the big promise. I mean, by itself, if we really did take if we adopted Europe's regulations for our food supply,
oh my God,
we would all start to lose weight without changing anything about the way that we eat. It would save tens of millions of lives. It would be, strokes, heart attacks, all sorts of other diseases would fall off the cliff in terms of the numbers.
Yes.
It would be one of the most dramatic changes in our lives. And I don't care if it comes from RFK, Trump, the Easter Bunny, Clovis, I don't care. But let's do it. I mean, if you ever go to Europe, you go to Europe for any length of time, let's say a couple of weeks. I eat whatever I want. I mean, we're talking about in France, it's the land where a steak comes with a slab of rich creamery butter on top.
Yes.
And the thing is, you come back and you're like, wow, that's weird. I lost a little weight. It's like, why did I lose weight? Like eating buttery croissants and millefeuille. And it's like, well, it's because they're not jammed with all those gross preservatives. So
agreed.
And so
I agree with everything you said there.
Let's do it. Let's just do it.
Who cares who
Well-dressed nerd, by the way. Thank you so much. Just gave us a $10 donation. Much
appreciated.
Thank
you, nerd.
So thank you.
Everyone's liking the breaking news that, I think for obvious reasons, these folks know us from our previous jobs and other places. So I think this is like great news right off the top for us to be ahead of that. It was just a blessing, Ted, that the whole Olaf Scholz phone call came right ahead of 10 a.m. But here we are. But
let's not take credit for it. If the Ukraine war comes to an end, it's not because of this show. But
we did it, Ted. Just
we can make that. Yeah, when we build our Patreon, we'll have that be one of the levels. War elimination, like $1 million. We will get rid of the war of your choosing.
We will make fun of your war and your
for free. That will do for free.
We'll make fun of your war and your leaders until they crumble. And then they have to call and concede. We'll just yes. Well, I think we're a long way from seeing an end to the Ukraine war, but all right. But so that's much appreciated. By the way, that if you're wondering where you can do that, you can do it on the Rumble feed, because we're live right now. But you can do it also during the rerun. If you're listening to us now during the rerun of the Rumble feed, you can go do that later. No problem. Yeah. Please follow us on Rumble. Also follow us on YouTube. We need it. It's really important. And it's really easy. It's just a single click for you. All right. So let's move on with more headlines. Okay. So headlines from the satirical website, The Onion. New dating site suggests people you already know but thought were too good for. Trump boys have slap fight over who gets to run foreign policy meetings. Here's why I decided to buy InfoWars. Only one is true. The byline author of the InfoWars
article doesn't exactly exist, but The Onion has purchased Alex Jones's conspiracy theory media empire website at a bankruptcy auction tied to lawsuits by the Sandy Hook family shooting victims. The Onion immediately shut down InfoWars, which was Alex Jones' site, and said it plans to relaunch it in January as a parody of conspiracy theorists. Manila, I have thoughts about this. Our goal in a couple of years is for people to think of InfoWars as the funniest and dumbest website that exists, said Ben Collins, the Onion's CEO. Well, for that, I would have to pass the Harris Policy website from this past year. It was previously the dumbest website that exists. The purchase for an undisclosed sum was backed by Sandy Hook families, who were awarded nearly $1.5 billion in lawsuits against Jones for his false claims that the 2012 shootings at that elementary school in Newtown, Connecticut were a hoax. The new InfoWars will be a satire of Jones's theories, which themselves were so absurd that they could have seemed satirical if they hadn't actually caused real life harm. This ends one tentacle of a loose network of podcasters, TikTok influencers, and others whose content keeps people perpetually provoked and enraged, Collins said. He called Jones one small character in a universe of fear-based media. An element of doubt, however, was thrown into the works yesterday when a judge in the bankruptcy case ordered a fresh hearing for next week on the grounds that the auction may not have been conducted fairly and there may have been favoritism behind the scenes. Manila, I like The Onion. I really do. It's a lot of fun, but this seems to me like dumb. And so like as someone who's, makes a living from humor and has for most of my life, and I have made, I was able to buy a house by making a living from it. I'm fairly successful at this. One thing about humor is you can't take something that's already really outrageous and send it up very effectively. It's already on its face silly. That's why a lot of anti-Trump humor kind of tends to fall flat, because he's so over the top to begin with. I mean, where the real humor, the fun in satire is when you find something that everybody sort of views as normal, and then you're able to tease it out and figure out how to exaggerate it. Like, what if we took this to the nth degree? How ridiculous could this be? For me, like, it was much more fun, more challenging, but the results were more rewarding, potentially making fun of, say, Obama than making fun of Trump, because, he's very presentable and serious and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But so
now I know what you mean.
And so I don't know. I think it's like, how are you going to make fun of this? I'm going to predict that this is a dumb idea and it's going to fall flat. And this thing, by the end of next year, they're going to give up on this project entirely. That, like, there's no need to make fun of fucking Alex Jones. Alex Jones is a whack job anyway.
Like, well, I don't entirely agree with that. Like, look, I am no big fan of Alex Jones. I don't, but every now and again I dabble in his material and see what he says. But look, I think what he said about Sandy Hook is gross and disgusting and awful, and I don't care that he defends it as a shtick.
It was gratuitous. He knew it was false, and he just did it for just because.
But I will also forever defend his right to have said it.
Me too.
And I will forever. I think he's largely a gross human being, but there are some things that he said that is like absolutely.
He absolutely should not have been shut down. He shouldn't have been censored.
Should not have been shut
the
down.
government shouldn't have taken over his URL.
All of that.
I mean,
like, I think
none of that.
The law got it wrong. The law got it wrong. So The Onion, I'd like to know how much they paid for it. I don't know why.
I bet not very much. I bet not.
I don't know why it's undisclosed though. I don't get why it's undisclosed. Like, why? But I think the ruling by that judge is stupid. The law got it totally wrong. But, it's not going to stop Alex Jones, right? He's going to just pop up with like InfoWars 2 or something, just it's going to be like the InfoWarContinues.com or something. It's going to, it's not going to end his media empire. He's just going to start it again from the ground up, bigger and better than before. So, I think what he said was shitty, the stuff that got him in trouble in the first place, but I still believe he had every right to say shitty
100%.
things.
No, and I think he should never have. Yeah, I mean, I think that what happened to him was gross. Actually, they made a gross guy look less gross because they were even grosser than he was. All right, let's move on here. California has seen its share of bears breaking into cars, but bears caught on camera entering luxury cars tipped off insurers that something wasn't quite right in what has now been dubbed Operation Bear Claw, which makes me hungry since I haven't had breakfast this morning. The California Insurance Department said 4 LA residents have been arrested, accused of defrauding 3 insurance companies out of nearly $142,000 by claiming that a bear had damaged their vehicles. The group is accused of providing video footage from the San Bernardino Mountains in January of a bear moving inside a Rolls Royce, as well as 2 Mercedes to the insurance companies as part of their damage claims, the department said. Photos provided by the insurance department show what appeared to be scratches on the seats and doors. The company viewing video of the Rolls Royce suspected, however, that it was not a bear, but someone in a bear costume. And not a bear inside a bear costume, but a person, presumably. Detectives found, but this reminds me of that zoo in China, that all the Chinese zoos with the fake animals, like, this is our bear.
Panda?
It looks like a dog. It's our panda. It's our panda.
That's a chow chow.
Shut up. It's our panda. The company viewing video of the Rolls Royce suspected that it was not. Oh, sorry. I read that. Detectives found 2 additional claims, and with 2 different insurance companies for the 4 with the same date of loss at the same location. Similar video was provided of the quote-unquote bear inside the Mercedes. It was not immediately known if the 4 people arrested had attorneys, whether they were ursine or otherwise. The department had a biologist from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife review the 3 videos, who concluded it was clearly a human in a bear suit. The insurance department said, best referral, best expert testimony fee ever collected by anyone. After it is my considered opinion after 28 years as an animal biologist, working in the Golden State, that this is not a bear. Okay.
It's like Dr. Reese looking at the video and going, that's a person.
J'accuse. After executing a search warrant, detectives found the bear costume in the suspect's home.
That's the costume right there.
That's okay. Yeah. It's good.
Do you see the metal claw at the bottom? Do you see that, Ted, right there?
The motivation?
Do you know what that is? Do you know what that is at the bottom? No. You see that metal claw? So it comes in a pair. I own a pair just like that. It is made for barbecue. I mean, my husband's from the South. Right. So
I like to barbecue, but I've never seen that. So, that looks useful, though. I should get one.
That's what you use. It comes in a pair, and you pull it. It's to do barbecue pulled pork. So that you use the bear.
But what was the motivation here? So what's the point, though, of clawing up your own car?
I don't know. Is it to get a new Rolls Royce or to get a new
maybe you're
Mercedes,
like, my 2019 is getting a little long in the tooth, or a little long, a little short in the claw. A bear attacked it. Yeah.
I just don't.
It's
criminals
awesome.
Just wow. That's all I got to say is if you are a rich enough bastard that you have like our guest, and I'm going to do this one. So you guys see this thing right there? Okay.
Oh my God, that's so horrible.
Okay. So you guys remember
looks like a Teletubby.
Kind of. But you guys remember the Beanie Baby craze or the Furby or the Tickle Me Elmo? So
Cabbage
just in time
Patch
for
Kids.
the holidays. Well, that too. Just in time for the holidays, there's this weird thing, this new fuzzy toy craze from Asia that is now taking the U.S. by storm. So it's called Labubu, and it's sold at a place called Pop Mart. So it's the larger plush dolls of this monster or whatever it is about 15 inches in height. It costs about $85. That's if you don't buy it like in the black market. The retail price is $85. The smaller ones cost between $15 and $20, like this the gal's holding. So Pop Mart recorded record revenues of $638.5 million for the first half of 2024, a 62% increase over the same period a year earlier. Sales in its burgeoning North America segment totaled about $25 million. More than 3/4 of its revenue comes from Southeast Asia and East Asia. So this toy is so immensely popular that it sells out in minutes after it's restocked. On a visit to a Pop Mart store in Singapore, this reporter that's reporting says a staff member told them that Labubus are the most sellable figurines. Quote, "It's always out of stock," said Tony Lee, who has worked at Pop Mart for 4 years. Even when we replenish within an hour or less, they're all gone. So he said Pop Mart restocks a few hundred figurines twice a week. Pop Mart doesn't announce when these restocks happen. Fans send updates to each other in dedicated Telegram chat groups, and within 30 minutes, all of that stuff is gone. And he says there's a line that forms outside. A lady named Tracy Sue, a 42-year-old housewife in California, learned about Labubu through Lisa, her favorite member of Blackpink. I had to look up what Blackpink was. It's apparently a K-pop super group. And Lisa is one of the singers. And I guess, she took a selfie with one of these dolls, and it just became massive in Asia. And now apparently every middle-aged Asian mom wants it for herself so she can be like a cool K-pop pop star. And Tracy says, when I first met Labubu, it made me really happy, said Sue. She has around 17 Labubu toys and said she spent over $10,000 on them. Once she even camped outside a Pop Mart for the latest drop. So here we are ahead of Christmas. Middle-aged moms all over the country. Apparently, this is not for their kids, Ted. This is for them. I just want to be clear about that. This is not for children. This is for these middle-aged moms that somehow are like, this is so cute. I'm not going to talk long about this, but I just want to say why. Why would you spend $10,000 on a handful of stupid plushies? Where are your children? Why are you able to camp out at the mall to buy one of these things? Why do you, and what kind of disposable income that you have? You can go spend 10 grand on buying some of these stupid dolls. And what for? It's just going to go in the way of the Furby and the Tickle Me Elmo and the Beanie Babies. And I got to tell you, Ted, in my early days of learning to be a salesperson, I had a family member that was in on the beanie trade. So I have experience in the whole underground Beanie Baby trade. And boy, that was a lot of money in the 90s when that was a thing. And this is going to be the same thing. And where are all those Beanie Babies now, Ted, 30 years later? Where are those Beanie Babies? Yeah, they're worthless. They're at the Goodwill.
There's some really interesting, and by the way, if you read about the guy who invented them and distributed them, I don't know if he invented them, but the guy who was the Beanie Baby millionaire, billionaire, that guy was, he was a genius, and he created false scarcity. He would have, he had warehouses full of them. And then he would deliberately ship not at all or ship slowly in order to create this panic around holiday season by parents who were like, oh my God, I have to get that for my kid. And then that drove the price up, and that created this whole hysteria that he basically figured out how to milk for years. And he did it, he's very clear about how he did it. It was all intentional. there's a lot going on here. We don't have time. We have our guest waiting, right. But I kind of feel like there's, first of all, it's like going back to the Dutch tulip craze of the 1600s and beyond. People have always bought stupid things that they thought were scarce, and because everybody else wanted them, they wanted them. You have the infantilization of American society where, adults read Harry Potter books, you know what I mean? And watch the movies. They're not for you. They're into
Twilight.
They're not for you. And it's like these things, our society, just think about when there's a tragedy, right? What do we bring at the site of the fire that kills all the kids? We bring flowers. Right? That's what you're supposed to bring, right? But instead we bring plush toys or whatever. We're like an infantilized society. Psychiatrists are having a field day with us. And this is all part of it. And then there's, of course, just the fact that people have nostalgia for their childhoods, right? So it's kind of I want to buy myself the cool toy that if I were still a kid, I would want this toy. Right. So there's a lot going on. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of other stuff too.
Yeah, but all right, we'll just leave that right there, and we'll go to our next segment. If you would like to bring in our guest after the Jaws.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So today we're investigating Pete Hegseth, the obscure Fox News weekend host nominated to become the Secretary of Defense for Donald Trump. Why was he picked? Is he qualified? Will the Senate confirm him? The Pentagon is a vast bureaucracy that controls an annual budget of nearly $1 trillion a year and employs nearly 3 million people around the world, stationed at over 1,000 overseas military installations and countless more here in the United States. The Pentagon is the second largest employer on planet Earth, and if you include subsidiary contracting firms, it's the biggest. In addition, the Pentagon controls military academies as well as 4 separate intelligence agencies. Considering all that, is Hegseth, a veteran but with no relevant administrative experience, out of his depth? We are posing that big question to Michael Maloof, former security policy analyst in the Office of the Secretary of Defense. He has almost 30 years of federal service in the U.S. Defense Department and as a specialized trainer for border guards and special forces in select countries of the Caucasus and Central Asia. Michael, thanks for joining us here on the TMI Show.
Well, thank you, Manila and Ted, for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for joining.
So Pete Hegseth, what was your reaction when you first heard about this pick?
They could have picked you, Mike, but they picked this schmuck over here.
No, he's got experience. They couldn't pick him.
Oh, that's true.
I would have respectfully declined, but no, it was a surprise. But it depends upon what Trump was looking for. He was looking for somebody who not only had the experience, but the thing is, and someone who's a junkyard dog, if you will, to get to the bottom of the wokeism that has now penetrated the defense establishment and the DEI nonsense that we're seeing. I recall one time the Russians published a comparison between the recruiting of their people and the Americans. They showed special forces being trained, jumping through hoops of fire, being slugged around, bare-chested, and jumping out of airplanes. And the one that is really memorable in my mind is the one of the cartoon showing a child of 2 military couples who were both females, and this was their notion of preparedness and military readiness, and it failed. And the Russians used that so readily to demonstrate the comparisons between our services. The image out there, what I'm getting at, I guess, is that the image of our military is not the best. Secondly, preparedness. We have some real crack stuff. We got high technology, but one EMP can really undo it all. And we don't have the military forces; they're not trained. We don't have the people who are well trained to deal with the common realities that we see on the battlefields today, namely how the Russian military fights, and they have some technology that we would like to have, but I have been trying to get, but cannot achieve, and that's the hypersonic missiles. And I think that this is serious. We don't have a defense against that. And in terms of our Navy,
knows all about that, though, right, Mike? I mean, he's a
brainiac.
This
is the thing. I think what I'm building up to is can he deal with trying to change this entire thing internally, and deal with people who are well ensconced. They have their own rice bowls. It's like in the intelligence community. Tulsi Gabbard's going to have the same challenge. And now you also have another relatively inexperienced military guy who's going to be the national security advisor, Mike Walls, a commendable background, Green Beret, but do any of them bring strategic vision to their positions? I don't see that. But you can be a quick learner. Hegseth is a very smart guy. He's motivated. He's got
but
ideas.
Is that enough? I mean, I think about really
brilliant.
Enough. Robert McNamara was absolutely brilliant, and the job defeated him.
Yes, it did.
But I would also
point out. Well, I worked under Rumsfeld, and believe me, Hegseth is no Rumsfeld. But in terms of thinking, in terms of influence in the establishment, what I see are a few things. Number one, the current Secretary of Defense, a retired general, lacks that strategic vision.
Right.
And he's a general. And the problem with nominating military people with former military backgrounds to this particular job is they don't necessarily bring to the fore within the interagency establishment the national security policies that are essential. Inevitably, it competes with the State Department. Now, one thing that's interesting here is that you got three people with military backgrounds: Gabbert, you have Walls, and you have Hegseth, all with firm military backgrounds. They're young. They're recently in the fray themselves. So that in terms of determining what national security policy is going to be, will be in competition with what the State Department has in mind in terms of its foreign policy and national security prerogatives. I saw this battle. It was a out and out, knock down, drag out, open battle between Rumsfeld and Powell when he was Secretary of State. It took all that the National Security Advisor, Rice, Condoleezza Rice, all that she could do to keep them separated from duking it out physically.
Really?
Because they were so adamant in their positions of prerogatives. And ultimately, Rumsfeld won out. So, but he brought with that depth, he brought congressional experience, business experience. He dealt with the intelligence community beforehand. He had knockdown, drag out fights with George Tenet all the time, who was then the director of CIA.
Right.
So he brought a certain dimension to the Defense Department that commanded respect.
But Mike,
let
me throw this at you. Let me throw this at you because both Rummy and Powell were, on one side or the other, they had been deeply entrenched and ensconced in the system for a long time. They were, Powell was this military, a career military man. Rummy had been in the government for ages and ages. Is there any benefit to bringing this young, fresh blood like Hegseth, who has no strategic background? Is there any benefit to having somebody that guy's my age? He's 44 years old. He was, I don't know if he was even an officer, but
yeah, he was. He was a major in the Minnesota National Guard.
Is there any benefit to that though? Bringing somebody that's from the outside that only, we'll just say relative to Colin Powell.
I hate to point out the comparison, but Hitler was only a corporal. Okay.
Although one of the first to get an Iron Cross, right?
Yeah, and he was regarded as a military genius in some respects. I'm not saying that to applaud him. I'm just saying that this was what he was regarded. That said, I think the young blood is going to be good if he can surround himself. If Hegseth can surround himself with people who have that strategic vision, it's people he can reach out and talk to for advice, like a McGregor, for example. McGregor is very, very sound. He's not well liked by anybody, but he is close to Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson allegedly is close to Trump, and I think that could be an influence there if McGregor is willing to do it. And that's going to be the other aspect. I thought personally McGregor might be on tap to be considered seriously.
I would have liked that.
Oh, it would have been quite different. And but his views would be opposed to what you hear today in terms of Israel in particular, and as well as but everyone seems to be coming around to the fact that on Ukraine things have got to change dramatically because we can't go on the way we are, and we're pushing ourselves closer to a confrontation with Russia.
Before we got on air, Mike, I don't know if you saw the breaking news at about 10 o'clock this morning. Apparently, Olaf Scholz, and this is reported by Deutsche Welle, state media basically, so we can count on it being true, is that Olaf Scholz made a phone call to Vladimir Putin this morning. And
that was expected.
But Olaf Scholz, he is, publicly at least telling the press, I don't believe him, but he's telling the press that it was kind of, he was shaking his fist at Vladimir Putin. That's what the phone call was. I don't believe it, but that's what he's saying. I think diplomatically, what we're seeing here is their economy is on the ropes. His traffic light coalition is on the ropes. They're going to have the snap election come January, just as Trump gets inaugurated. Trump has already signaled that he wants an end to the Ukraine war. So This guy, Pete Hegseth, is going to have to go toe-to-toe with folks like Olaf Scholz and whoever Scholz puts into,
with Beerbach or whatever her name is.
She's the foreign minister.
Yeah, she's the one who basically said just the other day that they want to dip into pensions to pay for the Ukrainians. That's going to go over well with the German society, isn't it? German workers. When you have 3 Volkswagen plants, for example, shutting down because of EV competition from Germany. So the economy, as you point out, Manila, in Germany is on the ropes, and they cut themselves off from cheaper gas and oil.
Right.
And they don't have the industrial capacity to go into a wartime production. They have a consumer economy basically, and that's where it's been since the end of World War II. But to switch over to a war production economy, the German people do not want it. And Olaf Scholz is probably going to lose in the forthcoming elections. And I think that you're going to see the rise more of the AfD party, which is more far right and a more of a populist type of thing. But they are hurt. They are because of the deadline with Trump coming impending, coming on board on 20 January. These countries now are scrambling to lock in, and we're hearing that UK and France want to get Europe and the United States so committed into Ukraine before Trump comes on board that he's locked in and has no choice. And that's a non-starter. This is going to be the beginning of the end of NATO, if that is to happen, and rightfully so. And you already hear Borrell, the EU Director General, whatever his title is, already talking about EU should be shifting or becoming more of a military alliance as well as an economic alliance, out of fear that NATO could be about ready to crack open. I would only add that what I see is that this is going to happen, and I think what you're going to see too is that many of these countries are going to become more what would you call it? For example, like the Scandinavian countries, more regional in terms of defense alliances, and in Africa, centered around Morocco, more defensive alliances. These are major non-NATO partners to NATO, but I envision that this is what could happen, and the EU itself could become its own entity.
Michael, let me ask you about tattoos and military culture. I'm old enough to remember when the military wouldn't take recruits who had a lot of
really.
It was not permitted
I did not know
at
that.
all.
If they were showing.
Right. And so now, Hegseth apparently he was questioned by his commanding officers as possibly being a right-wing Christian nationalist extremist over a large tattoo on his chest called the Jerusalem Cross, which has been associated with Christian nationalism. It's a giant sort of medieval cross with smaller crosses sort of intermingled, which sort of look kind of like an abstracted iron cross. Not quite the same, but it's a medieval thing. And it, has references to the Crusades. It got him in trouble with his unit. I'm wondering, politically and just culturally, could that trip him up in his confirmation hearings. I mean, it might sound silly to, question someone over their body art, but, I mean, if there's an indication that this guy's been palling around with, right-wing extremists, I could imagine a few Republican votes in the Senate having a problem with that.
Well, I didn't realize that having a tattoo could be a disqualifying factor for public office. However, the Iron Cross that you portray, it is medieval, but it's also the flag of Georgia, country of Georgia.
Ah, that's true.
And it's
I doubt that's where he got it.
And it's deeply religious. It's deeply Christian, Eastern Orthodox in particular. He also has "We the People," and he has a target or something else on his. But I just think that's a superfluous argument for qualification. It's what he has up here, and how he's going to manage who he brings in as his assistants to guide him because of his inexperience. And I think he'll be the first to acknowledge he lacks that. But
what about his views?
Policy orientation.
For example, he has written that he opposes women in the military in general, and that he
said in combat,
particularly in combat. He didn't say in general, though.
He said in combat, and there is a distinction, and
but women are already in combat, right?
Yeah, but they're not. They're even though they have some training, they're not given that specialization. You don't see one woman in the SEALs, for example. You don't see them in the.
Right.
There's maybe one in the Rangers, and I don't know what her disposition is. Look, there is a physical difference, and that's just the way. That's reality. And when you're in a foxhole and you're fighting on the front lines, and you got to carry a 230-pound guy on your shoulders.
Right.
I think a woman's going to have a hard time with that.
But women have been in military, in very successful military, in armies for the Red Army, they
were snipers.
Not in the foxhole, not like that though. Not to
not on the front line. I mean, you go back in history in the medieval times and even before Vikings, they had women who were archers. I mean, they're digging up remains today showing
Joan of Arc.
Women who had arch. They fought. They fought, but warfare was totally different back then.
These are exceptions, not the rule. The general rule, even like look at Tulsi Gabbard, right? She's a
lieutenant colonel, and she's been in combat.
And she's been in combat. She's tall, she's buff, she's a strong woman, like physically a strong woman. Even someone like her, I mean, she's much bigger than me. I think she's like 5'8" or 5'9". She's like a tall, big, buff, strong woman. Someone like her that can do burpees no problem all day is going to have a problem dragging somebody my husband's size, that's like 6 feet tall and 230 pounds out if her brother is shot, right? Like and you saw all the backlash we saw with Volodymyr Zelensky, now nabbing women to go fight on the front line. You saw the backlash coming from that. So I think I actually agree with Pete Hegseth on that, because if I were the mom of one of these boys on the front line, I don't want my kid's life being dependent on some woke DEI ideology of saying women, we're all created equal. No, we are physically not created equal, because somebody my size should not be in the foxhole trying to drag a 6 foot tall, 230-pound man out of bleeding to death. It's just not going to happen. If I'm looking at it as a mom, I'm with him.
The Zelensky is actually mobilizing pregnant women as well. So this is bad news. The thing is that during World War II, the Russians had women in combat. They were snipers. In my personal experience, women make some of the best snipers in the world. We have women who are helicopter drivers who fly the F-15s and the F-35s. That's combat.
Senator Tammy Duckworth, she lost her legs from that.
She lost both legs.
Pilot.
But they're not in a foxhole, and I think that's the distinction, maybe, that Hegseth is trying to make.
Maybe not.
They're excellent. They can be excellent in to fill in, and others to release a guy to do these other things. Because women, in my experience, are more. They pay closer attention to detail. They're much more precise. And in those kinds of disciplines, like a sniper, you need someone who's very level-headed and detailed, and can take that and send that round and do the job. During Desert Shield, Desert Storm, we had one woman reservist on our team, and we took her. We all one day went to Quantico to practice on the range. She outscored all the guys. And,
Wow.
But
the irony, she had never shot a rifle before.
Although the SecDef doesn't have to shoot anyone, right? He has to.
But this one has.
But I mean, this is an administrative job, right? I mean, you're drowning in paperwork. I'm reminded of Rumsfeld and his snowflake memos, they called it, and just like so. I mean, does someone who is as young and does not have that kind of administrative experience, like Pete Hegseth,
young with a lot of bravado?
But like,
well,
is he going to be able to
out,
handle that? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
He's going to learn on the job. He's going to learn on the job. Secondly, you have the likes of, look, when Weinberger was in there, and I came in under Weinberger, he was the secretary of HHS. Totally removed from the military. He was a lawyer, but he didn't have that military experience. But he turned out to be one of our best secretaries of defense. And during that time period, and he was highly regarded by then President Reagan as a result. So you see, Hegseth has the experience of the soldier, and he does relate more to the combat veteran and to the people who walk in the Pentagon, some 23,000 of them who walk around the hallways every day, and he can relate to them. Because he's been one of them. That's right. That's critical. And he's got the smarts and he can learn. And I think that if he surrounds himself with certain advisors who have that military depth or that strategic depth, I think that this is going to account for some. The only Secretary of Defense that I can recall who had strategic vision was Mattis. He was a military guy. He was a military general, Marine.
Right.
And I have the highest regard for him. And even though Trump didn't like him after a while, but he had the kind of thinking that Vladimir Putin has in terms of how to deal with the geostrategic, geopolitical world that we're going to be facing out there. And
3D chess, right, as they say.
Oh yeah, this past administration has been only reactive. You got to be 3 to 4 steps ahead in the future. That's why I think Trump is going to be a little more cautious in putting all of his marbles in one basket when supporting, let's say, a Netanyahu, for example.
Yeah.
Because he's also got to weigh what getting into war with Iran is going to mean with respect to possibly bringing in the likes of Russia and even China, and the fact that our policies of the past now have driven Russia and China closer together in a virtual military alliance. What does that mean for our ability to counter that? So I think he's got to really think twice. You got to cut. You got to measure twice and cut once.
Right. Yes. Well, Mike, let me ask you this, and then I also have a video I want to share with you guys about Elizabeth Warren reacting.
We also have a viewer question that we should
we do
pass along later. But go ahead.
Okay. So just real quickly, Mike, can you explain for us, because you were at the Pentagon for decades, how much latitude does the SecDef have? I mean, he doesn't act on his own, right? I mean, how much latitude does this job provide somebody like Hegseth? Is he just there to execute orders from POTUS?
I think this is probably going to be what happens, and also along with Gabbard and with Walz, he's going to bring a more of a military influence on defense, national security policy, as opposed to a State Department, because there has been that tug of war. You see with Austin versus Blinken. Blinken clearly has the lead, and you saw that in the when Afghanistan was evacuated. It was Blinken who was giving all of the orders and the direction when he was around, and it was not the Defense Department. And so this is going to change. I think that military background of all three, Gabbard, Walls, and Hegseth, will make a major difference.
You think they'll complement each other? Well, not this Senator Elizabeth Warren. I just want to play a quick soundbite, about a minute, of her responding yesterday to these Trump picks, and I'd like for you to respond after. So have a listen to this.
On a colleague of yours who has been nominated, perhaps less controversially, in Senator Marco Rubio to be Secretary of State. Do you feel like he is qualified for the position?
So, look, there are many things I disagree with Marco Rubio on, and I haven't decided yet about voting for him, but he is qualified. He has experience. We may have differences that would cause me to say, I don't think that he should be Secretary of State. And we'll go through that. We'll listen to the hearings. I want to hear very carefully from him. But what we're talking about with people like Matt Gaetz is very different from what we're talking about with people like Marco Rubio. And we just have to keep that in mind. But do understand with Matt Gaetz, and you've already made this point, he's not the only one out there who is unqualified and who raises whole questions like Tulsi Gabbard does. You really want her to have all of the secrets of the United States and our defense intelligence agencies when she has so clearly been in Putin's pocket? That just has to be a hard no.
With no evidence, Senator Warren just says Tulsi Gabbard as DNI. My vote is a hard no, without presenting any evidence free, that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset. And that's what the mainstream media is putting out there. She's basically saying the only person she would approve of is Marco Rubio. The only thing I see there is that that's what she says, is that he's qualified. And I think, it's because he's part of the establishment, which she's showing her true colors. She is no far left, progressive, blah, blah, blah. She's full of shit. She is part of the establishment. She's ensconced and entrenched, and it shows. And now she's saying, well, Tulsi Gabbard will never get my vote. She's a Putin puppet. No evidence.
She also said she was an Assad puppet too.
Come on.
And it's like, honestly, if I were Tulsi Gabbard, I would have my defamation lawyer on speed dial over this sort of thing. She should sue her. She really should.
Well, I think she represents the Democrat strategy in the Senate. It's insidious, but the whole idea will be to make a blanket statement that all of these people, because they're unorthodox, are not qualified. Mm-hmm. But they do bring attributes to the position. What's her qualification to be senator? She lied about her own credentials to get a scholarship to Harvard, and what's her track record and effectiveness as a U.S. senator today? It's basically nil, and it's one in which the president has a right to his own choice. There was a mandate, and the president was elected. Trump was elected, and he's entitled to his own people. And you're always going to have these folks who are going to disagree only because they didn't win. That's basically what it boils down. And they're going to obfuscate, and they're going to try to throw in obstacles. They're now a minority, and I wouldn't doubt that with a majority in the Senate, that all of them are considered en blanc and they're summarily approved, and the Democrats are going to go nuts.
Well, there's going to be there's pushback already. Clearly, the Matt Gaetz appointment is not going to. You can't count to 50. I think, in the Senate. I don't think you can get there. But what Trump is asking the Senate to do is to take a long recess, so he can push through a lot of recess appointments, effectively making it a rubber stamp situation, sort of like that would be the parliamentary procedure.
Yeah,
and this is being presented as this is being sort of, we talked about Adolf Hitler earlier. His first major act towards dictatorship was something called the Enabling Act, which basically turned the Reichstag into a rubber stamp. Basically, anything that the Führer says automatically is passed through the Reichstag without having to have a vote. This law just sort of says it. This isn't that. but I think it's going to be viewed as like, this is that authoritarian thing that we in the liberal press were warning about.
Well, yeah, but when Biden was elected, he had all the people he wanted, and he had control of all of the House and Senate as well. So the trifecta was in his hands, but he didn't do anything with it.
Well, but Obama didn't get Merrick Garland as his Supreme Court pick, right? Because Mitch McConnell, ran out the clock.
True.
That's true.
But and Biden also had a trifecta when he was elected. It's what happened in the off elections that things begin to crumble. I think you got to give him a chance. There will be an opportunity to give him to give Trump a grade in the by-elections in 2 years as to whether the nation approves or disapproves, and they can alter the composition of the House and Senate once again.
Yeah. Ted, did you say that there was a viewer
there
question?
was. Yeah, so here's the question. Is Trump and his team, or I should say, are Trump and his team strong enough to defeat the neoconservatives?
I would venture to say no. No.
Ugh.
You already have one in there, and that is Rubio. Rubio is a neoconservative, and they can be either Republican or Democrat. This this vehement notion of anti-Russian, anti-Chinese is one in which this is music to the ears of the neocons. Mm-hmm. They want to push American democracy to the hilt, even to the point of putting it at the barrel of a gun. And I think that this is something very, very serious. I worked under neocons, and I saw it. We had the Iraqi War. Look what regime change brought us. And $9 trillion later, along with Afghanistan, we had nothing to show for it. Mm-hmm. And it was all neocon generated. And I know exactly what they were trying to do back in 2003. They wanted to take over Baghdad, use that as a hub, and from there have regime change in Damascus, then Tehran, mm-hmm. Libya, Saudi Arabia, all countries at that time that were giving Israel trouble. Everything in the Middle East was looked at through the prism of Israel. Yeah. That's got to change, but it's not changing in this administration. No. And the fact that there's backing Netanyahu 130%.
Although there's a counterfactual, right? There's a report today that Elon Musk met with the Iranian ambassador to the United Nations here in New York, presumably at the Iran's UN mission, which I've actually visited. And so that would seem that there's interest in, thawing out relations to some point. I mean, obviously it's long overdue. It's been nearly half a century of sanctions and, hardly talking to each other.
As long as Trump leaves everything and the initiative in the hands of Netanyahu, as Biden has done, mm-hmm. All of these secret meetings with the Iranians isn't going to amount to anything. Netanyahu, between now and inauguration, this is our most dangerous period. Netanyahu, given what's going on internally in his own country and the fact that he knows that there could be an alteration after Trump is elected, he's probably going to try to make a move that on Iran that in a way forces us and locks us in, that we have no choice but to back him if we want to do that. I'm just hoping that the simmering underlying disagreement that Trump and Netanyahu have somehow can begin to have some impact in which Trump doesn't buy into Netanyahu 100% and starts giving some strategic thought to what he's saying. Because I can guarantee you, if Iran is attacked, it's going to bring in Russia and China. And also that we haven't discussed one thing, which is really going to be a major, major challenge to the Trump administration, and that is the rise of BRICS. Biden administration has had no response to it, mm-hmm. and you don't hear the mainstream talking about it. You don't hear in the discussions of these guys here wanting to come in how they're going to deal with the rise of BRICS and the developing world to deal with de-dollarization. That can be just as serious as any military threat to our dollar, to our posture in the world. and we can't afford a three-front war, and we're already $35 trillion in the hole. How are we going to pay it off?
Doge.
We never will. We never will. That's the answer.
There you go. Yeah, Doge will deal with it, right?
Let Doge deal with it.
The Department of Government Efficiency, which is not even a department and is so efficient that it has two bosses.
Well, you know, they're not even going to be official, GS level employees, Ted, just so we clear this up. And Mike knows what I mean. They're not even like official. They're going to be more as like consultants. So this isn't even a real department. They're calling it that.
It's like when you bring in McKinsey. It's like that.
Yes.
And they write a report and no one reads it. And that's it.
I would raise another thing about that with no staffs. How's Tom Homan going to do his job? He's going to be a special advisor. I would have thought that at least he would have been would have headed Homeland Security, because then he'll have the troops. He has no military, he has no army, he has no staff. How is he going to make changes that he's calling for? How is he going to engage the military to do it?
Homeland is going to Kristi Noem, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But he's going to be a special advisor to the president. His position is only that as special advisor. He doesn't have any cabinet role.
Yeah.
And there's no discussion about where he's going to be placed. Is he going to be answerable to Noem? I don't know.
Yeah, he doesn't have a portfolio.
No, none.
Yeah.
None. So how is he going to implement the president's border policies? How's he going to command? I'll tell you right now, the DEA has published a chart, which I think is very, very significant. It already shows that the Mexican cartels have 6 families that are in 13 states, of which 5 of those states are distribution hubs throughout the country. Why aren't we taking them down?
I mean, what I'm hearing, to answer your question about Honan, is that there's really, to paraphrase Biden, nothing will fundamentally change, right? I mean, they're not sending the military to do the deportations. There's just having ICE do it. ICE's priorities are going to be the same list of wanted people, criminals, that the Biden administration ICE wants, and that's what they're focusing on. I mean, I would imagine in MAGA world, they're not going to be very happy by this time next year.
No, I think we need to hear more about implementation. We need to hear more about how they're going to actually make all of this work. I hear grandiose comments about what they want to do, but how are you going to do it, and what's going to be your time frame? They only have 2 years to really show change, and I don't think they can get organized in that period of time.
It's a big job.
Totally. Well, on all fronts.
All right, Michael.
We'll see.
Thanks so much
for
joining us.
Appreciate you, Mike.
So
Thank you.
great. This was so enlightening. Really appreciate you joining us. So great. Please come back again soon. Michael Maloof is the person you just heard. He's the former senior security policy analyst at the Office of the Secretary of Defense. He has almost 30 years of federal service in the U.S. Defense Department as a specialized trainer for border guards and special forces as well in select nations of the Caucasus and Central Asia. My favorite part of the world. Caucasus.
See you guys.
Thank you, Mike.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Bye. All right. So yeah, that was super enlightening. He surprised me. I thought he was going to be a little more down on the Hegster, but he's
hopeful.
He's hopeful and optimistic. Emotions that I try to avoid as much as possible, for obvious reasons. They don't pay, generally.
They never pay dividends. Being hopeful and optimistic. Mm-hmm. Why feel that way? Yeah. Well, I'm just a stoic East Asian person, very similar to the Russians, right? I'm just
so
kind of
stoic.
like
no emotions whatsoever.
Yeah, I laugh at stuff.
Affect.
But generally, I don't have a lot of hope for anybody or anything, or so it's kind of how I live my life. I'm like, I'm never let down because I'm kind of like, I don't know. I have no expectations. I don't expect anything.
No, I have expectations. There's just in the sewer. And usually that turns out to be pretty accurate. I don't know. I think Hegseth went to Harvard. He's a smart guy, but being smart and educated is not enough.
Though.
It's really
I know
just
some
not
dumb
enough.
jackasses that went to Harvard. I know neurosurgeons that are probably some of the stupidest people I've ever met.
Sure.
Literally, like, where I'm like, all you know is this one narrow thing, and you know nothing else about the entire world. You are so dumb.
I know an astrophysicist who totaled 3 cars in 3 months. I mean, she's a moron. So,
you know, I don't care where anybody. I used to be impressed by that when I was college age, but now, you know, post that, having gone to in and out of different junior colleges because I couldn't afford to pay for college. And by the way, I'm almost, you know, I'm in my mid 40s. I'm almost done paying off my college debt. Which,
congratulations.
Yeah, it's like I can count on this many on my hand.
You should apply to that Biden plan that we talked about.
This many thousands less. I can count on one hand now. I'm almost done. But
I think the Senate honestly is going to have some problems with that cross tattoo thing. I think
really,
well, because where there's Nazi smoke, there's Nazi fire, right? I mean, I suspect that there's probably some tawdry right-wing affiliations that are going to come out in Oppo research for the hearings, and that'll be. I think Hegseth is a problem. RFK Jr. is a problem.
The Democrats are going to cause a problem there.
They're going to go after
the Republicans might actually cause the problem for
Tulsi, maybe?
Gates.
Yeah. Well, Gates is
for sure. Gates
so
is never. He's never gonna pass muster.
Gates is not going
dead
to be
in the
AG.
water.
He will not be AG. I mean, there's
DOA.
There's some speculation that this is all sort of a Byzantine kind of way to extract him from the that was your plan, right? I've heard that elsewhere now. No, I agree with that. So this
is like Nero. What's Nero's mom's name? Agrippina or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Agrippina. I think this is very like Nero-esque era of like 5 steps ahead.
Machiavellian machinations in the background.
They're trying to, because Gates has been a loyal.
The report was due out today.
Yes. But he quit. He quit Congress.
So apparently the investigation goes poof when you resign.
Poof. Yeah, that's it.
Because the investigation was to determine whether or not you should stay in or not, right? So
right. And
it's going to leak 1,000,000%. It's going to leak. And then we're going to find out about the 17-year-old hooker that he was boning. And it's not going to be good. But
the question is, did he know it was a underage hooker?
Well, believe it or not, that doesn't matter for legal purposes. I mean, of course, this is an ethical probe, right? But I mean, seriously, it's really crazy. It's really crazy. There are men sitting in prison today who literally, they had sex with someone who was underage, but they didn't know it. It's proven they didn't know it. They asked for ID. A fake ID was presented that told them that they were over 18, and it doesn't matter. It's like basically, it's sort of like you should have known. I don't know. You're supposed to have a DNA scanner when you hook up with a prostitute. I don't know.
I think that's pretty shitty. Well, I don't know Matt Gates's dirty deeds, but he's never ever going to be AG. I think that's Trump's exit ramp for him for being a good little soldier. Tulsi's going to face some trouble.
Or he gets in through the recess appointments.
You think so?
I think, honestly, I think it's more likely than not that the Republicans will go along with this. It'll save them a lot of trouble.
They'll reward him in some way, for sure.
There will be I think they will let all of them slide through. I think the Republicans will just have a lot, be like, go ahead, do all your appointments. If we don't, we're just going to be tied up like this for months. And the Democrats are going to tie us up. And we have a few loosey-goosey Republican members who are not going to be into this. So I think it's sort of like it kicks the can. I mean, it creates a terrible precedent for them because when the Democrats come in, they can do the same thing, right? So
sure, but
it's like
precedent. We have long passed that Rubicon. That was 2015. We have long since passed crossed that Rubicon. We are over. We're on the other side of whatever that land is. That's not even up for discussion anymore. We have Democrats right now that 8 years into it are still running with this tired bullshit, Russian propaganda bullshit.
True.
So there's all bets are off.
Honestly,
the gloves have come off.
I'm serious. Tulsi, we know you watch the show. Sue her. I mean, I used to really admire Senator Warren, but this is, I mean, and I like her politics.
Is that a suable thing? What she said?
The fuck it isn't. Yeah, of course it is. I
Really?
mean, she's
I gotta hear it
accusing her, just like Hillary Clinton did, of being a traitor to her country. I mean, you know, it's like, obviously her defense would be like, well, I didn't really say that. But when you say that, you know, someone is
Listen to it again.
a Putin puppet.
Just like Tulsi Gabbard does. You really want her to have all of the secrets of the United States and our defense intelligence agencies when she has so clearly been in Putin's pocket?
So clearly been in Putin's pocket. You can't trust her with government secrets. Why? Because she's been in Putin's pocket. What does Putin's pocket mean? Now, a good defense lawyer will say that that's vague enough to not be actionable. But I think, you know, there is a case here. She should sue. I mean,
there's a libel case here.
Well, why wouldn't there be? I mean, being falsely accused as a former member of the military of being a traitor who would sell out U.S. secrets to an American adversary, it's absolutely unconscionable. It's disgusting, really.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren, I've been long disgusted by her since she ran for president, and I used to like her a little bit.
As our producer just said, literally, she's accusing her. Warren is accusing Tulsi Gabbard of something that's punishable by capital punishment in the United States. Treason.
I mean, that is true, and she is an officer in the military.
No,
so
I mean it's outrageous. I mean, it really is outrageous. And I mean, I understand the whole Streisand effect.
Fuck Liz Warren.
You know, brush yourself off and just move on. But it's fucked up, and it was fucked up when Hillary Clinton said similar things as well. Yeah,
and my favorite insult these days.
Oh, they said the same thing about Jill Stein. Jill Stein is a Putin puppet. She sat next to Jill Stein. She sat next to Jill Stein Jill Stein sat next to Putin at dinner. Well, I mean, you know, at that rate, like I'm a tool of Fidel Castro's Cuba because I sat next to Fidel Castro once. Hell, I had lunch with him. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, obviously, Ted. And I'm gonna try to perpetuate this word, shit ass. That is a shit ass senator. She's a shit ass person. That was a shit ass thing to say. And
she's right about working class like economics. She's right about that stuff.
Sure, fine. But that was a shit ass thing. She's a shit ass, and I don't like this kind of dirty, like they're evidence free.
It is dirty. It's McCarthyistic.
Evidence free.
We should. I mean, we're way over. We should rock.
We're way
over. Let's get out.
So anyway, everybody have a great weekend. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, what we said at the top of the program when we started with the Olaf Scholz phone call, that was the breaking news. Hopefully, that proves to be something positive when we come back on Monday. So thank you guys for being here to support the program just by watching. That's support. Thank you, Putinbot Gaming, for supporting and moderating the chat, getting rid of the spammers and trolls. Please go check out that gaming channel. And you guys remember to subscribe, whether you're on YouTube, you can hit the like and share and all of that. Subscribe on YouTube, and same thing on Rumble. If you can, please become a paid subscriber with $5 a month. You can help us keep this show going. If you enjoy what we're doing and you find value in this, help us continue our work so we can stay fully independent and not have to, I don't know, Ted, like bring in ads from like sex toy companies or something, I think. Right?
Oh, we'll do that if we have to.
We might do that. So click the like button, smash it, as Jamarl would say. Smash that like button there on Rumble to help support the show, and subscribe to the TMI Show, or if you're on YouTube, TM Info Show. Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back on Monday. I don't think it's a holiday or anything.
No. It's just November 18th. That's all. And next week's not Thanksgiving week. People probably think it is, but it's the week after. It's late this year.
Oh gosh. Okay. Are there 5 weeks? Anyway, I'll do the math later. I'm bad at that. I am back on. Actually, I'm bringing back my Friday weekly podcast wrap up at 2:00. So if you guys want to tune in, I only do that on Rumble because, I boycott YouTube.
Okay. All right. Well, but not here. We don't here.
No, not here.
We're
Me,
pro
Manila
YouTube.
personally, because
right.
they have taken away my channel. They've demonetized me. So I boycott them and don't post my personal work on YouTube at all, like my own independent personal stuff at all. So I will be back at 2 p.m. Eastern. If you can't get enough Manila, I'll be back at 2
No one can
on
get
Rumble.
enough Manila. All right.
Ask my husband. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. I will see you
Bye,
all
everyone.
if you tune it in at 2 o'clock on my personal Rumble
And
channel.
I'll see you guys.
Adios.
Well, I'll see you guys Monday. Bye.
Oh, no DMZ?
Oh, well, yeah. DMZ America podcast is live casting at 12:30 Eastern. Me and Scott Stantis. Go to youtube.com/@DMZ America podcast.
There you go. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Adios, amigos. We'll see you, some of you at noonish and 2ish and then Monday.
And around.